good evening, everyone. So I just want to thank everybody for coming out and attending the session tonight. So I want to welcome you to the One Book, One New Orleans event. My name is Latoya. I'm the co-chair of the events committee, along with Liz, who's behind the camera tonight.
Woo, thank y'all.
Thank you. So before we get into it, I just want to talk a little bit about One Book, One New Orleans and what we're about. We are a nonprofit organization committed to fostering literacy and building community. So our mission is to encourage residents of New Orleans to be a part of a shared reading experience. So we select one book a year, and then we encourage everyone in the city to read the book. So when we go to different parts of the city, we can all talk about the same book. And this year's book is by Maurice. It's The Ones Who Don't Say They Love You. Wait, did I say that right?
That's right.
Okay. I'm like, it sounded funny. And so tonight we wanted to get together with the panel of UNO's Creative Writing Workshop Alumni. And so our moderator for the panel discussion tonight is our amazing ED of One Book, One New Orleans, Dr. Megan Hope. She hails from Muscle Shoals, Alabama. She's also an alumni of University of Alabama and Tulane University. Her efforts for One Book, One New Orleans and other areas of the city have landed her a few awards and accolades. Including the Literacy Champion of Greater New Orleans Award in 2014, and this year the Light Up for Literacy Award by the Louisiana Endowment for the Humanities this year. Woo! Yes! Woo! So outside her professional achievements, Dr. Holt is a passionate reader, a lover of life, music, and a dedicated family woman, drawing inspiration from her husband, Jermaine, and their sons, Jefferson and Abel. So her goal is to make New Orleans a better place for all. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Dr. Holtz to introduce the panel.
Thank you, Latoya. And can I just say this panel would not have happened tonight without Latoya, who was the point of contact and got all these folks here to say yes to coming out on a Wednesday night to talk to you about what they do. So thank you, Latoya, for your efforts. So I'm going to introduce these folks in order, and then I'm going to ask everyone to read for like 2 to 3 minutes, just so you all get a sense of their work. Just a small sense, because we've got 2 poets, a playwright, and 2 fiction writers up here. Very different folks with UNO CWW in common. And then we'll get into the discussion. But as we do that, I wanted to just say that when I say get into the discussion, I don't just mean me and these 5 folks. If you all have a burning question or something, don't feel like you have to wait till the end. Just raise your hand and we'll look and we'll call on you, and feel free to join in as we go along, right? Because that's what we're all here for, is to be in community. So I'm going to read these bios in order. I might shorten the short essay that is Maurice's. I don't have the 100-word at my fingertips. I've got the long version, because I've got them all in one place with the long version. So, starting in alphabetical order, Mimi Ayers, born in Chicago, has lived many places before making New Orleans home. She's a University of New Orleans MFA graduate in playwriting. Mimi's one-woman show, Three Women and a Crone, was presented at the DuSable, thank you, Museum of African American History in Chicago. 2 of her plays have stage readings in New Orleans, Man to Man and Circus Tales, currently being rebooted into a musical, Circus Tales. I'm really excited to hear more about this. Her film script, Eulalie, thank you, Mandeville, FWC. I almost said Eulalie and then second-guessed myself. Inspired by Eulalie Mandeville, an early 19th century New Orleans free woman of color, was published in the first edition Artemis Arts Wisdom Anthology in 2021. Moving on, Gina Ferrara lives and writes in New Orleans. Her poetry collections include Ethereal Avalanche, Fitting the Six Finger, poems inspired by the paintings of Marc Chagall, and The Weight of the Ripened, a finalist for the Islands Poetry Prize. A Miss, also published by Dos Madres Press, is her 5th collection. Her work has appeared in numerous journals, including Callaloo and Tar River Poetry. Since 2007, she's curated the Poetry Buffet, a monthly reading that takes place via Zoom, and the latter branch of the New Orleans Public Library, the first Saturday of each month. She teaches English and creative writing at Delgado Community College and is the editor of the New Orleans Poetry Journal Press. Welcome, Gina. Welcome, Mimi. Annell López is a Dominican immigrant. She's the winner of the Louise Merriweather First Book Prize and the author of the short story collection, I'll Give You a Reason. Hold it up. It's forthcoming. It's 2024 from Feminist Press. A Peter Taylor Fellow at the Kenyon Review Writers Workshops. Her work has also received support from Tin House and has appeared in Guernica, American Short Fiction, Michigan Quarterly Review, Brooklyn Rail, and elsewhere. Lopez received her MFA from the University of New Orleans. She's assistant fiction editor for the New Orleans Review and is working on a novel. Andrea Panzeca is a teaching artist with Kids Smart and has taught visual art and dance at the New Orleans Museum of Art, Contemporary Arts Center, and the Lila Haller School of Ballet. Did I pronounce Lila correctly? Maybe?
I don't even know. I think so, yeah.
My little baby cousin Lila spells her name like that, so we're gonna go with it. Right? She earned her MFA in creative nonfiction writing at the University of New Orleans, where she was associate nonfiction editor of Bayou magazine. She's published poetry, memoir, a scholarly essay on Zora Neale Hurston, and is the author of poetry chapbooks Rusted Bells, Daisy Baskets, and Weird Joe Pesci. And last but not least, alphabetically, Maurice Carlos Ruffin is the author of the forthcoming historical novel, The American Daughters, which will be published in 2024 by One World Random House. All right. Boy, I love that we get to see these books before they're out in the world. It makes me so happy.
I'm thinking about bugging Maurice and taking a copy of it.
Right? He's probably got his own notes in it. He is the recipient of the 2023 Louisiana Writer Award and the Black Rock Senegal Residency. He also wrote The Ones Who Don't Say They Love You, which was published by One World Random House in August 2025. There that one is, look at it. As y'all know, it's our selection for this year. It was a New York Times Editor's Choice, a finalist for the Ernest Gaines Award for Literary Excellence, and long-listed for the Story Prize. His first book, We Cast a Shadow, was a finalist for the Penn Faulkner Award and oh my God. What else does he have in that bag? The novel was also a New York Times Editor's Choice. Ruffin is the winner of several literary prizes, and his work has appeared in Garden and Gun, the Kenyon Review, and 400 Souls, a community history of African America. A New Orleans native, Ruffin is professor of creative writing at LSU and the 2020-2021 John and Renee Grisham Writer in Residence at the University of Mississippi. All right, we are going to stop there and let the folks do what they do best, and that's share their creative works. So welcome everyone. I think I'd like to hear reading, maybe sitting closest to me and going, so like poetry starts and ends the thing. That seems right.
That's a nice order. All right, so I'm going to read maybe 2 poems. The first poem that I'm going to read was written actually a long time ago. It was written in 2007, and the poem is about, in 2007, New Orleans had, it was kind of limping back from Hurricane Katrina, and there was this, it was called Prospect One, and it was all of these art exhibits that were located throughout the city, some in really wiped out places. There was an arc that was in the lower 9th Ward. They were all over. And so one of the installations was these musical paddle boats in Bayou St. John. And this is a poem about those. It's called The Glinting Rhythm. I wrote it for my husband. Admit it. Today could be the best moment you've ever had in my concave city. Your downpours, evictions, evacuations, broken heart and skid marks dissolve on an afternoon where rust and orange mums are placed beneath names of the dead. Here, there are no mounds. Everyone succumbs to mortar and alabaster. You become unstuck, acquiescing to a fluency that flows without language. The paddle wheel turns percussive. Measured as a haiku, we push, pedal beneath the bridge. Metal touches metal and moves brackish jade water, named for a zealot saint. My red hat keeps slipping from my head. You steer us back into sunlight, and we marvel at the sight and sound of steel, glinting a rhythm, a recurring dream, where 3 ibises rise like hope from flotsam. And this too is set in New Orleans, surprise, surprise. Vigil in August. Tom knocked on my door and said the Sirius was ready to bloom tonight among his hothouse orchids, named and unnamed, some in shades of minor palpitations, and even fainter, others inkier, more indelible. Still others acquiescing in illusions of inside out as otherworldly apparitions, malcontent ghosts from previous centuries. Another chartreuse on the exterior, foreboding, brooding purple within, just like an impending tantrum. Somewhere we heard gunshots, rapid, quick, elliptic, intentional, bullets expelled, making impact or ricochet, while we waited for the exceptional spectacle of a lily detonating its own frilly white weight.
Okay, well, I'm going to read an excerpt from The Circus Tales, which was first written in 2017, I guess, when I was still in CWW, but I have since rebooted it into a musical. So I will sort of give you a hint how it kind of goes. In this scene, there is Eleanor. It's called Circus Tale. Eleanor is the elephant leader. Mr. is the chimpanzee, MC. And there are 2 cats, Elijah and a lion, and Camilla. She's a drugged camel. It starts off with Axel and Chase. You didn't even want it. You don't know what I want. I want something I can call my own. I want something no one else can claim. Just me, only me. I want something I can call my own. I want someone who will only belong to me. Just me, only me. Why do they always pick you? You get to go. Why I'm stuck in the show? I'm stronger, you're bigger, but that's just half your problem. Yes, I took it. Too bad you weren't here to try to stop me. They should have sent you. If you weren't such a mixed up crazy cat, they would have. You are such a whiner. Take the damn toy. I don't want it now. Take it. You can't make me, you big bully. I'm big and I'm proud. I'm great. You're big and loud and gross. You just slobbered all over it. To be the oldest, you are such a wimp. Cry baby, half-breed, stud breeder. They grab hold of each other again, wrestling around the ring. Mister starts calling the hose as if they were in a wrestling match. Chase grabs the head. Axel snaps the hold. Chase goes for the genital. Axel blocks the attack. He's down, now he's up. Grabs Chase. They're in a deadlock. They're rolling. Who will come up on top? This reminds me of... Camilla comes in. She's lost in a dreamlike chance. The sun is gone, but through the darkness a light pierces my soul. My moon, where are you? Are you calling me? Take me away. I'm yearning for your embrace. Take me, come, take me. Feet free from sinking in rolling sands. Push, plop, push, plop, push. Oh, moon, pull me up, up and away. Take me away. No, not this way. Rolling, rolling, rolling across water. No, too much water, too deep, too dark. Rolling water. My stomach's all churning, rolling, they're churning. Ah. And they all sing. She dreams of her moon, but it's not her moon. She yearns for its call, but it's not her moon. Where are they taking me? Take me back, that's not my moon. Not saying, where's my moon? It's not her moon, it's not her moon. She feels it calling, but it's not her moon. Where is my moon? It misses me. I feel it calling. Oh. Mister, take her back to her stall. Mister gently guides her off. Oh. The cats start fighting again. He came after me. You started it. He took my... He's nothing but a big bully. I'm just big. You are brothers, Eleanor says. And they both say together, half-brother. Axel, my dad was a tiger. Chase, my dad was a lion. Ugh. You have the same mother. That ought to count for something. If your mother was here, she would not be pleased. Both of you act like you have no breeding.
That's a lot of fun. I love that. Yes. And I love that we have poets on the edges, like the wings of the panel.
Bookends.
Bookends. Yeah. Thanks for having us all tonight. It's been such an honor to be the representative of One Book, One New Orleans organization this year. All right, what are we gonna read? Oh, hey, Judge, how you doing? Glad you My professor, Randy Bates. When I was in grad school, he taught nonfiction. So good to see you, Randy. All right, so this is what I'm gonna read from tonight. This is like one of my first times reading from this new book that has not come out. It comes out February 27th. And it's called The American Daughters. And the idea is pretty simple. You got some black women and girls in 1850s who bond together to make a spy ring to sabotage the Confederates. And so the book is pretty straightforward, but there's some parts where I was sort of like step out of the narrative to give you a sense of what's going on. So to keep it simple, or here's the secret, they finally published a novel with a prologue. Your agent or your editor will always say, don't do that. So I'll put a prologue in this book for that. All right. Prologue. Researchers File 2169. Translated fragment of historical document known as Adi, or the Confession of a Freed Woman. In grasping my pen and putting my hand to page, I felt as though I existed for the first time. I was the property of no one save myself. Therefore, I could freely give of myself to those I loved. No? As my mother promised, I had once and for all found a place for myself in this world. A place of complete freedom. The freedom of birds, flower petals, and the stars above. Researchers File 2152. Conversation transcript regarding the American Daughters. See, people kept asking me if Adi was a true story. Now, I never lied. Now, I admitted that the work I had done to fill in those gaps in that book and complete the narrative. By the time the book had been reprinted twice, you see, and I played down my involvement because I never wanted that whole to be about me. It was her story. You feel me? That couldn't last. I see that now. Try as I might to stay out of the way, I was involved in ways I didn't quite understand. You see, they were trying to tell me that this whole story, the American Daughters, was just fiction from back in the day. But I knew in my heart that Audie was real. Have you read Confession? Yeah, I'm talking about Audie's diary. No? Well, that's your loss. You ever do read it, you'll see she practically glows from the page. And next thing I know, they show up and they're just saying that they had some of her hair and they want to test my hair. So I let them. It was a match. Now, ain't that something? That changed everything. Everything. Jackson Millier Signalman, born 1975, died in 2019. The interview was recorded at Petrie House in Connecticut, March 26, 2017. So that's the prologue.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
I'm gonna read you a little bit from a short story, from one of the, I guess, flash pieces from the collection. It's my first time reading from a physical book, and it's very weird. So I let her be. The day my mother ran away from happiness, I stood with her in the bedroom turned studio that had become her everything. She ripped up the piece of packing tape, her sharp nails puncturing adhesive and plastic. Crouching, she placed the tape over the flaps of a cardboard box, then smoothed it out. This one's ready to go, she said, pushing the box with her bare foot. I watched the box glide across the polished floor. When it arrived at my feet, I picked it up, balancing it on my right knee for just a second. The box was heavy. My mother, too, was heavy, only with sorrow. Her studio had unearthed a better side of her, a happier woman. I wanted to keep that version. But ever since the incident, she made up her mind that it all had to go. The canvases, the tripods, the resin molds, the full body mirrors, the vanity, the negligees, the makeup. I tried to stop her. I tried to tell her I didn't care, that my classmates had seen pictures of her naked body, that I, in fact, loved her nude photos. I was neither embarrassed nor humiliated. I didn't care what anyone said. I admired her art, the way it changed us, how it brought our lives from a blurred into sharper focus. But my mother put my needs above her own, and my classmates' taunting at school, like the constant prick of a needle, wasn't something she could ignore. She reached for another box and folded it, then secured the bottom with packing tape. Hand me the bubble wrap, she said, and I grabbed it, absentmindedly popping a few of the bubbles before she shot me a look. Let's get this over with, she said. Here, I said, handing it to her. My mother and I were living off a settlement she had received from a malpractice lawsuit. It was enough money, and it allowed her to work odd jobs and do some freelance work. She'd been a dog walker, a babysitter, a server for a catering company, a Zumba instructor, a valet, a tutor, but none of these jobs made her happy. She spent her free time looking for love and companionship. It was as if she was perpetually homesick for something. As if they were made from a mold on some assembly line, each new boyfriend was a replica of the last. Fast talkers, Don Juans and Casanovas from every corner of the Caribbean. My mother loved those men, muscular, with dark, with well-kept beards and blue-collar jobs, men who break her heart. Before the nude photographs, before she found something she loved, other than me and the men who cycled in and out of her life, my mother had struggled to get out of bed. She argued she was fine, but her body kept a tally of the losses. Each relationship subtracted something from her, leaving less and less behind.
So I'm gonna read a few poems. They're pretty newish. This is called Freaked Out. Freaked out because the Okefenokee swamp showed up blue on this map. Zoomed in, green again. Thought it is a swamp. I shot the clerk. Pretty midway between the Gulf and the Atlantic beachfront if you broke Florida off along Perry. In cold blood. Wonder if he was tickled driving through with Dick on the way to Miami after maybe doing an unsolved murder in Tallahassee. And Live Oak, which kind of leaf would you be? Was it some weird transparency, like the stop motion animation I made? My first. Could see a cloud moving through a plane. Oh no, just something on my glasses. I wanted to read that at a reading earlier with Ann and Gina with the Women's National Book Association, and I didn't read that, and it was the one poem I wanted to read, so I just wanted to make it right. Okay, this is called Spectacle, or From the Wings I Like to Watch. The song en masse comes, oceans to be made wider, gray epoxy floor between Tennessee and Guam. Virgil's dance studio, even after the cleaning, would make him special, realizes it singing, plots his approach from the stairs, saying what he said from the stage. Penultimate plot from the garage. His posse trying to get in. The bird is not murdered. The small broken fragment, the small shadow, which is Butch. One more. That was all language from Ronaldo V. Wilson's Virgil Kills, so it's like a remix. But yeah, and then this is the last one. This is more like in line with the work I worked on at UNO. So yeah, it's called Alone. My dad died alone, cold when mom came home. Had wanted me to move to New Orleans, I only did after. 8 years before, his father died, 30th anniversary moon landing. We drove from the Space Coast, got there too late, no last words. Papa was surrounded by family, but now the house is in a video titled Abandoned Mississippi Mansion, though it's really in New Orleans East. Can't watch in case I see my stuff, moved hastily. Dad's brothers gave him 30 to 60 days to leave. First dog still buried in the yard in a mailbox.
Thank you. I feel like the answers to the questions I have are going to make so much more sense to all of us now that we've heard them read. So thank you all for that. So I wanted to start out, since you're all UNO CWW alum, asking you about your path to the MFA and why you picked this MFA program over all the ones you could have picked. You can answer that in any order you'd like.
I'll answer that. I'm here because of Maurice.
I don't think I knew this.
He totally knew this. I don't know actually. Yeah, so I wanted to write, and Maurice went here and he mentioned it worked for him, and sort of, like I was kind of writing on my own, but I sort of realized that I could sort of speed up the process, so to speak, and learn faster than by myself. And he seemed to be doing really well, and I was like, oh, cool, I guess I could do that. And yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, that's why I'm here.
Well, I'm here because I was looking for a place to be, just me. I was retired like 50 years ago. No, I graduated from undergrad over almost 50 years ago. And it just seemed like I wanted to start somewhere where there was a life, and I tried to go to North Carolina, but that was the same week I visited when they had that murder, so that was out. I didn't want to be really close to my family again in St. Petersburg. And I had been to New Orleans before Katrina and said, I'm gonna come here every year. And then I didn't, and then I was all that. Anyway, I was so glad to come back and visit a couple of times, and then when it came time for me to pick a university, Justin had something in his bio or something that intrigued me. I said, well, this is the kind of place that will accept a kind of non-traditional kind of writer. So that's why I'm here.
So to be clear, you graduated from undergrad when you were 2 years old. My story is pretty straightforward. In 2010, when I decided to apply, I was working full-time as an attorney downtown. And I just kept thinking, all right, I really want to give this a go, but how can I do this thing, like how can I make this dream happen? And I was like, well, I could try applying all around the country, but really, first of all, I can't quit my job because it's like paying for my house note, my family, that kind of stuff. And then secondly, it was like, well, you know what? I would like to go to Iowa, for example, just because they say it's so great. But also like, you know what? I got a chip on my shoulder anyway. So I'm just gonna apply to one place. And if I get in, it's meant to be. And I applied here. And so the idea of coming from a place that people don't quite see coming, but it's made for people who are a little bit non-traditional, and all the success that we see happening from the writers, I love this crew so much, you know, because we're very special. I think this is a very special university. And I went in for undergrad also, not 50 years ago, but I was class of 2000 and class of 13 for graduate school. So.
I think my story is really similar to Maurice's because I was a non-traditional student. I came to UNO in the dark ages and got my undergraduate here, and then I was teaching middle school. I was married. I had a house note, you know, and so it just seemed like UNO was going to be the best option for me. And it took me, I will tell you, I should be able to write prescriptions now for as long as it, not just poetry, because it took me probably about 6 years to get my MFA. And in between that time, there was Hurricane Katrina. But yet UNO kind of remained, the CWW, it remained a constant. So that was a good thing.
I went to FSU for undergrad and I did writing there too, and you know, I kind of moved here pretty much right after that in around 08. And so I was like, oh, what should I get my degree in? And I thought like underwater crime scene investigate. Like I just like everything. Like I like all the subjects, and I just like, so I just didn't. I just kept working. I worked at Delgado, and I was doing grants and stuff. But I just really wanted to do like art again. And I even took like a quiz on the Louisiana Workforce Commission's website because I was working a grant with them. And I like answered all the questions, and it was like, it came out, you should be an artist or a writer, or because I would like 60% creativity, 40% research, and 10% business, and that's like what, you know, that's like writing kind of. So I like applied. I'm like, well, I don't want to move. I want to live here, and yeah, it just worked out really good. So.
Cool. So if you had to pick one, and I know that this is a really difficult question, if you guys had to pick one thing that you sort of carry with you the most from your time at CWW, one lesson you learned, something you feel like was the most valuable, what would it be and why?
I can answer that question. And the person here, taking a workshop with Randy Bates, who always had such positive things to say. I mean, to be in Randy's workshop, it was just wonderful, because Randy always kind of had this way of being very, very positive. And for me, I think, you know, now that I'm teaching, that's really something that I think that I learned from Randy was just, you know, to take the positive, to really have the positive kind of in your critiques of student work. So that was something that definitely I took and I carried to this day.
It was so easy to be positive about Gina's work because it was so good.
Mr. Good Vibes. I mean, every time I see him, I just want to like hug him. He's such a great person.
I agree. I never even had a class with you. I just just like talking to you when I get that opportunity. Well, Justin was mine, and he gave me the freedom just to do whatever I want. If you look at my plays, they're all quite different, and that's okay because that's just me.
I think the lesson I took from this place was bring your whole self to it, commit to it, and it's going to work out if you believe in yourself. Because again, I was coming here as an attorney, and I remember like driving across from downtown, that 25-minute drive, you know, like wearing my suit, and being like, what are you doing? You're 33, it's your Jesus year, you're starting, in the grad program. You're wearing a 3-piece suit going across town. What is this? It's like, well, yes, in the daytime, as a lawyer, you're gonna be a lawyer the best you can be, but in this space, you're gonna be a writer. And you're gonna lean into it as much as possible. And you're gonna have these sort of two things happening at once where it's like, I'm turning my stories in, getting ready to be workshopping, like, this is the greatest story of all time, in one hand, but in the other hand being like, guys, please help me out. I don't know what I did made any sense. Just give it to me. So, and I just, I tell my own students that today at LSU, I'm like, you know what, just, if you believe it's going to work out, in this place definitely inspires the attitude. People like Randy are a perfect example of that positive spirit. It's hard to be mad being a UNO person,
I was here 6 months ago. So I think, I haven't had a lot of time to think about that question, class of 2023. I think that what I did learn while I was here was similar to what Maurice said, to sort of view the time that I spent here as very sacred. I also, much like Maurice, started the MFA while teaching full-time 5 minutes away from here. And like Marlena would pick me up and then bring me to class after I've taught a full day. So I learned that, the time that I spent here was sacred, and I had to make the most out of class time. Yeah, and I do appreciate that this program does tend to make space for students who are not so traditional, so to speak. People who have full-time jobs, people who sort of, have busy lives in many ways, and do have the ability to pursue an MFA degree, which is really nice.
Yeah, I just have to shout out Randy too. But I think there's two for me. The one I learned at the time was just reading. Like, I know that sounds weird, but
that's good.
Like, I remember trying to read an academic paper when I started at UNO, and I'm like, what is this? I cannot understand this. It's so dense. And like, by the time I left, I was reading like academic papers for fun, like just on stuff I was interested in. So that's just, yeah, great. And then after I left, I realized just the community, like just all the opportunities we had to like, read the one act play contest, and the, like I got to go to AWP with Bayou when I was an intern at Bayou. So just, yeah, like all the community, and I wish I only would have done it more while I was there too, but yeah, just so many great lessons.
I read those plays too. They were good.
They were.
The students we had, I think most of us had to read plays for the contest, I guess first year or something like that.
Yeah.
You sort of learn a lot about their stories.
Yeah.
So I think the lesson here is we should all go take a class from Randy Bates. That's the lesson. But it's one thing to be a really good writer, which all of you are. The publishing process is a whole other bear. I mean, anyone who's written anything, my dissertation included, folks will tell you how to write it, how to make it good. Do they tell you about all of the hurdles of the publishing process? How did the CWW prepare you for that? And what have you learned about the publishing process along the way? Because I know that you all came to publishing very differently.
Again, I think it's about your intention. So, to be honest, there were probably a few people who came with the idea of I want to be in school, maybe I want to teach one day, and maybe the idea wasn't that they wanted to be published writers, and that was fine for them, and they've done well in their own right. But for me, it was like, I don't know how any of this stuff works, and my dream was to have like a book on a shelf in a library somewhere, because I was a geek in high school who would go to libraries and like volunteer. So I'm like, well, how's this going to happen? And so what I noticed was that if I asked the right questions of my peers and professors, a lot of us would go to Parkview on Monday nights after class and just like hang out together and talk to our professors and talk to our classmates. You learn things. And they also encourage you, go to AWP, for example, and you meet other people who are like students from Seattle or from California or from Florida, that kind of thing. And I think like anything in life, it just comes down to like setting a personal goal, like a personal, like a vibe. You have to pick your vibe. And what that really means is, you have to believe that you can just make something appear out of nowhere. So, what am I trying to say? what I'm trying to say is, like what our mothers teach us, what religion teaches us, what philosophy teaches us, what our therapists teach us, is that if you believe, that belief will actually change the world around you. And so what I noticed is that, whenever I was lost, I would literally say to somebody, I remember being at my first AWP, 2011, that my friend Jamie Hatley told me to go to. And it's like, meeting these two guys, I'm like, you're from New Orleans, right? I'm like, yeah. Like, what are you doing? I'm like, I have no idea. And they're like, okay, let's hang out tonight. And we ended up having a hangover type night. We traveled around DC from 10 o'clock to 6:45 in the morning. And these two, my big brothers now, they told me all kinds of things that I've kept in my heart for all these years. And so, you just check the vibe, make your own vibe, and keep following that vibe. Also, make sure you guys get as many of the sandwiches as possible, because they don't want to bring sandwiches home. All right. What was the question?
Publishing process and what a bear it is and how you do it.
Oh, yeah.
When I was, I think still at UNO, I submitted my chapbook to Finishing Line Press and was accepted, and I was like, oh wow, that was easy, and it hasn't been that easy since. But yeah, it was, I don't know, I'm kind of weird because I feel like I really feel like my work wants to be in a little nugget, like a chapbook or something, rather than a single poem, and I'm kind of trying to overcome that and submit just single poems more. But yeah, that's just how it's been for me, just yeah, just trying to find that little bit. And I struggle too, just because I love the generating part. That poem Freaked Out, I don't know when I wrote that, but I found it, I'm like, whoa, there was I don't know. So it's just, I like generating and the actual culling and curating, and actually, I guess it's probably different for fiction writers. See, that might be a genre thing, but yeah, it's been a little bit of a love-hate thing for me, because I love the writing so much that actually the finished product part, it seems so far removed when it actually happens almost, but it's still great to have that in your hand, but yeah.
I also feel like none of my books should have been published. I mean, what I mean is I think the benefit of being a New Orleans person, whether you're from here or you have claimed this as your home, is that this is the home of improvisation. Mm-hmm. And so I noticed that over and over again, I had all these plans I'd make. My friends would say, Maurice, just do this, this, and this is gonna work out. And it would never work out, right? And it's well, what can you do now? Okay, improvise. Do the option, try a different direction. And so even with the first book, I remember my original plan was to publish all my thesis short stories first. And I had 3 professors who gave me the emails to their agents. I'm like, yeah, just send this off and it's gonna get published immediately. 5 years later, nothing had happened yet. And I'm like, okay. And then one day I'm in a cafeteria in Vermont of all places. And there's this guy that's kind of staring, mean mugging me like that from across the room. And I'm like, I'm one of the waiters. I kind of walk over there is there an issue? He's like, are you Maurice? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, we need to talk. And I'm like, all right, fine. Give me 20 minutes to get off my shift. I was at Breadloaf. And so I walked over 20 minutes later and sat down. He's like, so I'm this famous New York agent. I've heard about you through different channels. And he's like, what's your book about? And I've been struggling to even explain what this book was. I'm like, this is a book about race and identity in America, and it's all emotional and weird. And I can never explain it in a compelling way. And this is the faith part of me, is that one time I finally said the perfect elevator pitch, where I was like, this is a book about a handsome black man in New Orleans, not like me at all, he's a lawyer, who in this future New Orleans is freaking out because he's black, his wife is white, he has a mixed race child, and he's so worried that the race problem in America is going to destroy his child because the kid can pass for white. He's got this dark birthmark that's getting bigger over time, and it's freaking the dad out. He wants to use the money from his job and his promotion to get rid of the birthmark. And I'm just watching the agent's face and kind of going, oh, and you see it happening in front of your face. And what I'm trying to say is I think that if we are too firm and thinking it has to go a certain kind of way, publishing it's just chaos. It's total chaos. And what it does is it burns people out. It burns out a lot of good writers who get tired of the struggle. But if you do love the work itself and you love your community, you get so much energy from that. And we all support each other so much. And therefore, it's like a pleasure. Even the hard times, even the Saints losing twice in a row, if you're on the team, it probably feels okay because your buddies are with you with the losses, what I'm trying to say. So, yeah.
5 years, I like that. Because it seems like I've had 5 years of rejection. I'm not struggling to be a publisher. I'm struggling to get my work produced, put on stage. And, it's really nice to have a really good community church that I have a few little, one accent that, so that's satisfying, but basically, no, publishing is not in my desire. I want it on stage.
Broadway?
Yeah, eventually, it'll get there, it'll
Alright.
get there, I mean, it'll get there. 5 years, I like that, these things.
Yeah. Yours?
Yeah, I feel like production is kind of the playwright's version of publishing, right?
Yeah.
That's the goal, getting it in front of folks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for any other playwrights, to start off, get out there and go to the theaters, meet the people, put your face out there, put your ideas out there, make a conversation. With COVID, I started out with that in mind, but then I got pushed back, and I'm only just now beginning to come back out of that fear zone. So that's my advice, or hope for those who want to get out there.
But you have the good fortune of working in, this is like our species' oldest craft. Like, we've been making drama for thousands of years.
Yes,
You know what I'm saying? Like
Euripides was
ancient
my
Greeks and Romans.
favorite person,
Yeah, exactly. And don't forget, if you have questions out there, feel free to throw them all at Annell. She'll feel the questions. Whatever they are.
I think that, being in community is probably the best thing about trying to get published. I think it's just like having people who encourage you, having friends that will hear you out when you're celebrating good news, but also when you're getting rejections. Having people who, because the rejections are so many, if not almost all of it is just being told no over and over and over. And the beauty of having a community that sort of is willing to uplift you and make you feel like it's okay. I got a rejection too. And when those acceptances do roll in, people who are willing to celebrate you, as difficult as it is to get those stories out and to get that book, it is really nice and sort of impossible to do without others.
Yeah, like the earth is mostly water, writing is mostly rejection. That's totally
Denise
okay.
has a question.
I have a question, because I'm a writer also, I have books published, 5 of them, but do any of you have agents?
Yes.
Oh, you have, okay. That's just as hard as getting stuff published, right?
I had a very interesting journey to my agent, in which I was at UNO, I was writing stories. I knew that I wanted to place the stories in journals, and I wanted to eventually have a book. And this is my thesis. And I was sort of submitting to agents who were not very interested in short story collections. So I was told a few no's and some other encouraging responses. I started writing a novel. I figured, okay, maybe that'll be the way. So this book I did not get through an agent, so this was a prize. So I won a prize and got a book deal that way.
Okay.
And funny enough, when the prize announcements came out, the people who rejected me or had been waiting or had been iffy about, I don't know, were like, hey, we just heard about the prize. So those people sort of sent me messages, and I went to AWP and I met with 4 agents in one morning. It was like I had coffee 4 times. My heart was just going like this. I had coffee date with this person, a coffee date with this person, a coffee date with this person. It's so it happened to me that way, because of the price.
And I think for poets it's a little bit different. Sometimes poets have agents, but y'all are doing the Lord's work. So your process is just here's this wonderful offering to the species, and then the press is yeah, we'll publish that book for you because we love you so much. And I guess with maybe playwrights as managers or something like that maybe is, I have no idea. I know for me with the agent, again, I'm the kind of person that, I can be very type A, and so I had all these plans. I'm a Virgo also, so I had these structures. I had a list of 50 agents that I had compiled. I'm reading the backs of books for the acknowledgments. Oh, that's so-and-so's agent. I'm asking my mentors and friends, who's your favorite agents out there? Making this whole thing, and I have all these Wile E. Coyote plans. I'm you get that? And again, it just wasn't happening like that. And I keep saying the Lord's on time. And what I realized was that there are no mistakes. So for example, one of the things that happened was, one of my teachers here, one of my professors here, he's in Canada now, but he was like, oh yeah, my agent is the head of like the biggest agency in California, like in Hollywood. He'll take care of you. Send my letter to him, like, hey, I got these stories, and he writes me back, and to his credit, he's like, I read your book, Maurice Ruffin, I don't think it was that hot. And you know what? That was fine, right? That happened. It happened. It was a real thing. And then I had a couple of friends who, like, one won a contest and got an agent, like, through the contest. One found an agent because she was like a hustler. And in both cases, it didn't work out well. One person never finished their book, and the other had a bad agent. I was like, okay, maybe I've been like pressing too hard against this, whatever this thing is. And so I said, Maurice, just calm down for a while. And when I did that, my mindset changed. I said, you know what? Spend the next couple of years just making this book a beast. And what I realized is back to this idea of intention, like not to be too woo-woo about it, but it's like, okay, so I'm gonna assume, is Mrs. McConaughey, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna assume that you've seen The Color Purple, right? The movie, the original, not the new one. And you've also like watched maybe some soap operas in your life at some point, right? Probably, maybe, not so much. Those are different ends of the spectrum. Like soaps are like populist, commercial things, and they sort of draw you in like all the drama. And then like Color Purple is very serious, somber, sublime piece of art that came from Alice Walker, yada, yada, yada. What I realized is that when it comes to getting an agent, getting an editor, or publishing a book, you can choose the sort of tone of each thing you do. So this book, for example, is the one that I was like, you know what? I got these short stories, they're not coming out yet, it's just not working. But if I write this book that I know that these kinds of agents I like will respond to, well, this first chapter is like catnip for people in that, like in New York City. That's what happened. And this latest book is more of like this is my mama. Like she'll love this. And when she reads this, she's gonna be like, oh, you was on one, son. I like that so much. This is like more straightforward, a little bit like, for the people type thing. And the response has been more of this sort of widespread response. So again, getting an agent is a matter of like maybe having a plan, but also having some faith and just figuring out what is your end game. And it tends to come together over time. Yeah. Great question.
I would add to the agent conversation that I did spend a lot of time trying to sort of find the right person. And looking back, I think the time would have been better spent just, I don't know, not worrying about it, I think that just going back into the work and focusing on the work, and the right person will come along and they will love your work. So trying to pursue someone who's not 100% in love with what you have, it's also not a good idea.
Just like in life. Like in life.
They have to love you. Yeah,
if they don't like you, you need to just, because I've seen that thing and people are like, please, please. Like, no, sis, leave it alone.
I've never had an agent. I always thought I should get one though. Thought that would be beneficial.
Well, I mean, and I guess the last thing I'll say about it, again, it's your intention. Like, look, there's a fine writer I know, he's a Louisiana guy, so I'm the current Louisiana Writer of the Year, but last year's Writer of the Year is a dude named David Armand. And David is an amazing writer. He's written 5 books, I think, and published, but he loves going to small presses, like to university presses. Agents, you don't need an agent for that. My thing was, again, my dream was I want to see my books in the library, like in Kansas one day. So I need a bigger publisher, so I need a certain kinds of agents to give me that dispersion across the country. Yeah, thank you. I think I saw a hand over here.
There, yeah.
Well, that thing that both of y'all just said about creating lists and being type A, that you just drag me, because that's what I'm doing, so it's time to calm down. I've had kind of a 2-part question. First is like, when or how do you know when you're like in a good place to say, okay, I'm gonna start reaching out to agents, or I'm gonna start submitting to contests? And also, like, when you're doing that, do you still go back and are you still making edits, or are you like, okay, this is the version I'm shopping right now?
You never stop editing, right?
I was editing today, and they're already ready to go, and I was like, oh my god,
I was editing
can we
this
please
2 days ago.
get rid of that line, please? And I emailed to please get rid of one line. I think that here's sort of how I see it, or how I learned through my time at UNO. It's like, you will be told no, right? So I think that at the same time you want to focus on the work, but if you do feel, I don't know, I believe that sometimes you have to sort of follow an impulse, right? And I do believe that, I don't know, I learned through someone not to stifle a lot of impulses, which is like weird, dangerous advice. So you have to trust that your impulses are not going to be risky impulses, right? Don't stifle the impulse. If something feels ready and you feel some sort of degree of enthusiasm, I don't see why not. The worst thing is that you'll be told no. And you'll be
Oh, I
told
have.
no regardless. So I would say don't rush something that isn't ready. But if you do feel that the work is ready and you've put in the work and trusty friends have told you that the work is good and you've sat on it for a while and the impulse is there, I would say follow that impulse.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that. I mean, everything that Annell said, 100%. I think everything is a calculated risk. One thing I learned from observing my people who are judges, we have a few judges in the room right now. I mean, kind of nervous thinking about it. You know, all these, if you don't know, like if you're a lawyer, judges are like your bosses. Like they're like your supervisors. Like they can wag their fingers at you. You shouldn't say that, son. Anyway, but watching judges like figure out how to do cases, there's always two sides, right? There's the criminal case, there's the state and the criminal, or the accused. If it's like a civil case, there's like the plaintiff and the defendant. And they have this hard job of like saying, you know, what does the law say, and then what do the facts say? And they have to sort of weigh things like that. It's one of my few type A Virgo personality traits that's helped me out a lot in my life is pro and con list. And so I'll sit down, like take a little sheet of paper and go, what are the pros, what are the cons? And so I remember I was sitting down at some point trying to figure out, is it time to try and find an agent again at some point? I'm like, what's the upside, what's the downside? And everything that Annell was saying was like, well, my friends say my work is pretty good. I feel pretty good about this. I think I can kind of explain it to an agent if I reach out to them. And I find that over and over again. It's just that, it's a matter of like just assessing the situation, taking, again, I guess this is my only story I can tell you about like calculated risk. One time I entered a contest because I told myself that I needed objective proof that I was a good writer. And so my two ways of assessing that I was a good writer was one, sending out short stories to get published, which didn't work out too well. Because from 2004 to 2011, I sent out stories a total of 326 times, and I only got published 3 times. That was that, right? And then I was like, okay, this is not a good track record, bro. This is like if the Saints lost for like 12 years straight, and had like no wins. And I said, okay, well, you know what you can try now? Make a little budget for yourself, put some money on the side, and like enter contests, just to see what happens. And so I remember it was the beginning of 2014, and I put like $200, I didn't have much money, to the side. I entered like 7 contests over the course of that year. I got no responses for like 6 months. And then in 3 months, I won 3 contests. But before that, for short stories. But before that happened, in May of that year, I get an email that says, hey, congratulations, Maurice Ruffin. You're 2nd place in our contest. We're gonna send you a check for $500. And a little voice in my head said, boy, don't accept that. I'm like, what? Why not? I'm 2nd place. I got $500 in my pocket. And the voice said, look, if you know what's right, just don't accept it. So I wrote them an email back saying, hey, thank y'all so much. I want to withdraw my 2nd place story from contention. And then 3 weeks later, the title story in this collection won the biggest contest in America, the Iowa Review Contest, 2014, which basically changes the entire course of my life. And that's me as somebody who prays every night and thinks about my friends' experiences, just sort of like, just follows that improvisational spirit, as like not forcing anything at all. So, you know, gut feelings, you know, what does your intuition tell you? Yeah.
Thank you. Just to, thank you for sharing that. That was super cool and powerful. Kind of going off of what Marlena was asking, do y'all have like pre-publishing or like before you set your work out to the world, do you have any kind of practices that you adhere to? Like, do you have peer readers? How much of it is peer readers versus confidence? You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, do you?
I feel like Gina has like 300 peer readers because of the poetry buffet.
Well, so for my own work, you know, I have that type A Virgo personality too. I mean, but the thing is that's all kind of channeled into my space where I write, you know, and I am like fastidious and like I read somewhere one time like Sylvia Plath. She was like a cabinet maker, furniture, like she would polish and polish and polish until it came out right. And so I've been writing for a long time, so I rely on my own instincts. And people tell me, oh, but you should have readers. I did, a long time ago. I had a lawyer actually who loved poetry. And a lawyer who loved poetry, and he would read my work, and he gave the most wonderful critiques. And then I got into MFA school, and then I just kind of started writing. And so I really don't use, like, I don't have a group. And I think that maybe just either depends on your personality, or it depends on, like, kind of your process. You know, like, kind of what is your process? And I don't write long poetry either. I mean, so I'm in awe of people like Carolyn Hembry has her book's coming out, it's a long poem. I think even though I'm a Virgo, I think I'm kind of lazy at heart, because I could not write fiction to save my life. I just don't have the stamina for that.
But can I say, I mean, I am so lazy. But what it really is, for me, it's just the idea, like, well, how can you use it to your advantage? You know, it's almost like this sort of the drunken master in, like, the old kung fu movies, where you think I can't fight, but if you, like, throw a punch, you're gonna miss and I'm gonna get you back. Like, I published 22 stories between 2014 and 2016, and yet I would only write once a week each month. And I was like, I would like watch anime, you know, I would like go to like the putt golf and like play around for 3 hours, you know, that kind of stuff. But on this idea of like process, I mean, I think everybody has their own process. For me personally, because I grew up like watching, so I'm an 80s kid, that means that I was indoctrinated by Ronald Reagan to like watch like G.I. Joe and Transformers, all these like war type shows. And it's also like the Seven Samurai, Magnificent Seven, and what's the one with Ben Affleck and Liv Tyler with the asteroid? Armageddon. Like they putting a team together. Like, so what I do, I put a team together. So I'm like, all right, who's my buddy for like actually writing? Like who would I go to a coffee shop with for a little while? Like write, that kind of thing. And like who's my first reader for like my messy, sloppy, typo written drafts? Like who's gonna be like kind of kind to me and say, keep going, Maurice. Like who's like I got a good like third draft of my book. Who can I show it to? And they're gonna get back to me relatively quickly. And they're not too busy because they have like, you know, and they'll get back to me. And it was like I revised for like 3 months or 6 months. And like once I get my sharpened thing, and they can go in with like I got a friend named Ben Morris. He's a poet and he's a genius. Like the little like the green cap, he's like going in there being like, well, on page 75, you should have had a semicolon right here, not an M dash. He's my guy for that, right? And I think we all kind of have that little bit in our lives. And so I think if you sort of figure out what are your needs, you know, I know that as a writer, like my strengths are that I get obsessed. I write a lot, like in a short period, but I'm also like bad at like editing my own work. You know, I'm kind of like, I got a draft, I'm like, I can't even see it anymore. It's invisible to me. So I got to find people that have good eyes. And again, you know, the universe will tell you what's going on with your work. Like if I give it to, you know, 3 friends and they're like, nah, bro, this ain't the one. You know, I'm like, oh, okay. I don't take it as like my heart hurts. Like, okay, I can revise it or just throw it in my fireplace and light it up and see what happens. So, yeah.
I have like a few thoughts. Like I've been in a lot of different writing groups and I enjoy them. Like sometimes they kind of ebb and flow, whether it's like virtual or in person, but also, like, yeah, confidence is a part of it. I'm a Leo, and I feel like there's just a certain, like, you have to, I don't know, just, I just feel like if I'm excited about what I'm reading and I want to read it again, and again, I like piecing things together, maybe in a chapbook, so it's like a few things, and it almost tells a narrative, and, but yeah, and time too, like, cause then you go back, even the minute you submit a lot of the time, oh no.
Oh, that's the worst.
Yeah.
When you send it, you're like, oh, why'd I do that?
Yeah. But even like sometimes if it's, you know, if you're getting kind rejections, that's a good sign off, you know, or acceptances obviously. But even like if it's not working, maybe you pause and then you go back and then you just see like, oh, okay, I get it now, you know? So.
And just like a quick point on that, rejections they're your best friend. Stephen King in his book On Writing, which is like one of the most beloved writing books of all time about the craft of writing, he says, look, I'm 19 years old in Maine, I got a little typewriter, and I'm sending these little stories out getting rejected. And he's putting the slips above his typewriter on the wall, and he had 300 rejections before he got his first acceptance. And he's saying, he's teaching you, look, in all the arts, acting, music, singing, dancing, writing, rejections are part of what it is. Don't feel bad about that. And also what it does is it forces you to adapt and evolve. Because I know for a fact, like, maybe half of these stories were thesis stories that are revised. But the earlier versions that got rejected over and over again were almost all thesis stories. And frankly, looking back, I'm like, yeah, you should have tried to get that published. It wasn't ready. And so the story that wound up like, you know, winning that prize was like, all right, I'll keep getting rejected. Just like write a wild, crazy, rude, mean-spirited story, see what happens. And that change in my style is what kind of made it pop. And I've taken that little element and put everything I've written ever since then, which is this sort of aggressive, get in your face style. And I mean, maybe you're gonna like not like it, but you're not gonna ignore it. You're gonna have a strong opinion, pro or con. Also, shout out to librarians in the house. Hey, Rob, how you doing? I know you had a hard year. I mean, Rob, librarians in general. So thank you for being here tonight.
So Mimi, for you, I'm really curious how this process for you kind of speaks to these guys. Quite different. Can you tell us about it?
Well, a play needs people, actors, and so yes, I have to have the feedback. I have to see, and I have to, you can imagine the characters, but I think it's a whole lot of R's in my plays. Rewrite, reimagine, revise, re everything. And then after I've seen it if it's actors reading it or if they have it on stage, it's still, I want to revise this, I want this and that. It's a constant changing because of the actors, what they bring to it sometimes, or what they make me say, oh, that doesn't really work. This would be better,
Is that exciting? Do you find that exciting?
Oh, yes.
Do you like have an actor you kind of go, I gotta rewrite this part to fit this person?
No, but to fit that character.
Fit that character.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing all of you talk, and you've all talked so much about not just writing, but about other things you do, whether it's teaching or lawyering or dancing. How do these other things you do, and especially as non-traditional students, all of you, sort of inform the work that you're doing now?
You teach?
Yeah, well, I have to say everything I've learned, all the best things that I've learned from teaching high school. Because the reason why I feel comfortable with rejection, and I wouldn't even call it confidence, I feel like it's just rejection, is because nobody will lie to your face. No one's ever gonna be as honest as a teenager in telling you everything. Are your shoes ugly? You will hear it. Does your outfit not work? You will hear it. Do you look tired? You look sick today. Thank you. The honesty, I think that high school is hard, but it's such a great place for life lessons. I've learned to just deal with rejection. And I've also learned to sort of, be brave. High schoolers are really brave people, with their tiny little annoying selves, but they take risks, sort of that impulse, lack of control. And you sort of watch it from the outside, and it's like, oh man, this kid did this thing. Look at them, just rolling down that banister, break. I can send a story, and if somebody says no, that's literally the worst thing that could happen, is that I was told no. So yeah, I learned a lot from that.
Dude, I almost forgot. Can I get a picture, y'all? Could you just wave at the camera? I just want to hey y'all, how y'all doing? Thanks so much. Wait, what was the question?
Oh, how the other things you do inform your writing.
Well, I think one thing that writing can do for writers, I think most of the panel would agree, is that the secret to writing is that it's a gift to us personally. I noticed that a lot of things that I wrote when I was in grad school was me working on my personal demons. So I got this problem in my life. Let me take this problem, give it to this poor little character, and it's watch it get out of control in this person's life, and that makes for good drama, good conflict, right? But then also the flip side of that is that I've always been a very curious person. I was the kind of kid that I could not stop asking questions, my mom, my grandma, and my dad, and my cousins, that kind of thing. And so now as an adult, where my main thing is to write. To be a writer means you're a curious person look, I love people, and I love that we make so much stuff. So whether I meet somebody who's I only do translations of Uzbekistani poetry, I have a student who does that. I'm tell me more about that. Or I meet somebody who makes their own shiffer robes. I'm well, how does that work? Watching anime, listening to hip hop, listening to, all these things are always feeding my writing constantly. So even right now, I'm writing a utopian, futuristic story that I'm writing for somebody who has an anthology. And I'm well, how do you write that? Well, it's okay, if everything's working well, what can I use for that? I'm watching these different TV shows to get ideas and just taking bits and pieces from here and throwing it in there. Even to the point one of the characters has a pet minor bird. because apparently minor birds are one of the smartest mimics in the animal kingdom. So I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna put that minor bird in the story, see what happens, just see what it does to the story, you know? So to me, I enjoy life a lot more in this mode, because I know in comparison, like, you know, I had a lot of good experiences as a lawyer, but in my lawyer mode, it's like you in this office, in a skyscraper, wearing a suit, sitting at a desk, under fluorescent light, with the air conditioner turned up too high, and you can't leave. You have to like sit there and get the job done. And, you know, the pay was very good, but the curiosity was sometimes stifled. Even though the cases could be very various, I can go anywhere now. You know, and that just feels really good to me as a writer. Oh, we got some quick people.
Yeah. So Mo, when you gonna write something about court?
I don't want to get sued, and I don't want to get like, you know, contempt of court, like thrown like in the brig or something like that. But that being said, you know, to be perfectly honest, I think my actual answer to that question is, I want to be a better writer first. It's like write about like lawyers actually doing their thing in court, and about like this sort of world of lawyers and judges and clients. And I also want to mature some more. Like there are things I tried to write. Okay, this is my last little bit of advice on it. So I believe that as a writer, you should be writing beyond the state of your art. So if you think you're this good, try and write like you're that good. You're probably gonna fall short. You're gonna come close to that. As opposed to, well, I think I'm that good, I'm gonna try and write that good. So I think for me, there's things I tried to write. Look, I tried to write this book years ago. I wasn't ready. I had to like figure out who my ancestors were first and how things worked in a certain period of time, yada, yada. So long story short, I think like maybe in about 5-10 years, like a little courtroom drama, romance, mystery thing, but I got
sex and violence, you gotta have that too.
like real court, like real court.
Like Tulane and Broad.
Like Tulane and Broad, yes, exactly, exactly. I think it was the second question.
Yeah, I just had a question about process. I know everybody's process is different. For me as a poet, I know what my process is and it works for me. But I've always been interested and always have written other things and wanted to write novels and short stories and plays. How do the stories come to you, I guess, like in their fullness? Does the initial idea of a character or a plot come to you and then you just build off of that? I remember hearing Jesmyn Ward talk about her process recently and how she just kind of, they introduce themselves and continue to grow as she writes. And then I know there are other writers who like storyboard the whole thing out on a wall with Post-it notes and have arrows pointing to this, and that, and have all the characters pinpointed out. I'm just interested to know like what each of your individual processes are for how the story.
If y'all don't know, this is one of my greatest poets in the city right here. She ain't gonna say nothing.
I appreciate that.
I mean, it's real.
Thank you, Maurice, for tooting my horn. I need a little tutor.
That's for real. Wait, tell them your code name. What's your code name?
My code name is, well, I'm known in the city, I guess, by people who do know me by Icon.
Everybody, thank you. See, look at it. Look, Icon. She went, oh my God, it's Icon. Like a secret identity almost.
I am like in a closet like this.
No, it's real.
Right?
It's real.
So I don't know, who knows. But yeah, I'm very interested because I did get an offer, well, it wasn't recently. I kind of published with a small publisher first, my first book, and then I had a bigger publisher who's interested in publishing me, but in my fear, I kind of backed away because I'm like, I kind of want to do a novel, but I think the first book should be poetry since that's what they like. But I've had stories come to me, but they're never complete. It's just an idea of a story. So I've started them, but then like,
well, let's see, Annell, how you find your story?
So what are your?
That's a great question. I think that for me, sometimes, like I'll be inspired by just about anything and then I sort of follow the voice, right? And I don't always know where the story is going to go, but I feel like you don't find out until you sit and just keep writing. And so like I'll start a lot of short stories that go nowhere and it's just like, okay, well, we're gonna scrap this. But if I feel or have an idea, I tend to sort of be more driven by like a character or a situation. I sort of ask myself, what does this character sound like? Sometimes I'll journal about this story that doesn't even exist, right? So if I have like, I don't know, a phrase or a statement or something, I'll write it down, then I'll like, what's the next thing that this character can say? I'll write that down, I just keep going until I sort of get to discover who this character is. And then from there, I try to think of what's ahead, if we look behind what just happened, what's happening in the moment, and sort of take it that way. But very rarely do I have a complete story in my head. It's just sort of snippets of situations, but I just sit and just keep writing. And I guess my writing tends to be very sort of voice driven. So I just follow what, to me, it's the cadence of this character, the way that they would sound, and the way that they would see the world. Just take it from there.
Yeah, I treat it like a seance almost. I mean, be
I was
real.
gonna say, do you see,
Yeah.
hear? I know some people see.
Because like, I feel like a lot of literate, so like they're genre writers. Like we have friends who are genre writers, like my friend Daniel Jose Older and Brittany Williams, and they like these they write like fantasy and sci-fi, and they can like do a whole outline and kind of go, like they actually do Star Wars books. So like Darth Vader's gonna attack, Luke Skywalker is saved by, like that kind of thing. But for a lot of literary people, it's this sort of feeling of like the vibe, improvisation, the voice. And so literally, when I start writing a story on that blank page, first of all, I think all writers know the blank page is the scariest thing. Because you don't know, you may have like run out of actual stories to tell. That might actually happen to you, right? It's probably not gonna happen. But I started writing a story 2 days ago, this utopian thing, right? And what I always do is I kind of go, right, just write a paragraph, Maurice, just see what comes out. Like what's coming out of you today. Kendrick Lamar says, he don't know what rap he's gonna rap. He says that it's like his homies who aren't here anymore, like telling their stories. So I hear the voice first, and I kind of go, is that the voice? Yes or no, like decision tree. If it is the voice, proceed. If it's not the voice, no, you gotta do something else. So with this story I'm writing right now, I'm like, 2 days ago, I'm like, that's not the right voice for this person. This is like a non-binary character in the future New Orleans after the city's been flooded for a long time. But it's actually a healthier city because there's no pollution anymore. What does that person sound like? So I'm doing that. Then the second question is, what is the biggest problem in that character's life right now? Like you talking to your cousin, your auntie. Say, auntie, what's your biggest problem right now? Well, I gotta tell you about this thing happening. This dude I ain't seen in 30 years showed up last night, asked for money, and I ain't got it. Whatever that question is, that's the second thing. So it's the voice, then the question. And then the third thing is how to make that problem 20 times worse for that person. So if she's like, yo, he won $100, I got 80 already. It's like, no, he won $100, and by the way, he kidnapped my daughter. That's where the story comes in. So the voice, their problem, and then the escalation of the problem, and sort of follow that trail until you wind up somewhere.
Yeah, improv is like really important to me too.
Yeah.
Just like when the blank page is like
terrifying.
Yeah, and like one way I try to get out of that fear, I guess, is like to have a ritual, and like so I'll like to do like dance, like kind of alone to like whatever songs I've stuck in my head, and then I just sit for 5 minutes, just quiet, and then I'll write and like kind of follow that flow voice that like I just pretty much fill a page and then don't look at it again for like a long time maybe, and then I accumulate a lot, and then I go back, and a lot of it's not really interesting to me again, but some of it I'm like, whoa, that like came out in one little chunk like that, like, so yeah, that's just one mode like I like to do, but it's nice to just kind of get it out. It's like I used to write in a journal when I was young too, and it fed the same kind of feeling, and like writing kind of narrative is a little bit different, but yeah, like the process, it is like a seance a little bit, Yeah,
like light the candles, play the soft music, turn the lights down a little. But I gotta ask, how do you find the idea?
I think I start with the problem, and then I have these characters that just are out there trying to solve it, and they're just there, like the animals are like. I was writing, and I didn't realize till I was almost finished with it. Oh, this is about slavery, isn't it? But it's not about slavery. It's about people trying to be free. And I like historical fiction a lot. I read a lot of historical fiction, and in movies, that's what I like. So if I'm giving a character, I like to fill in the blanks.
I know we're probably getting short, but I see Marion. Sorry.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I think it was Marion Moore she was a clipper of, she clipped everything, and she had all these newspaper clippings, and that often would drive her poetry.
Really?
And so I think kind of as a poet, it's the same thing. It could be a walk with the dog. It could be making meatballs. It could be anything. And so the most recent book that I had is a book called The Miss, and it was inspired by, all of the poems in the book were inspired by women who were either murdered or who were missing. And that poem, that whole collection got started by a picture that I saw of a young woman who had been murdered in 1972. We were the same age. And that just kind of was this like positive domino effect where I got one poem and then another and so who knows how it happens. It could be anyway, really. You know, and I guess we do our own versions of newspaper clippings, you know.
Gina, isn't that funny how once you get rolling, the ideas are everywhere? It's like
Yeah.
air, you know, it's like all around you once you sort of in that space, you know?
Yeah.
That's speaking of Marion Moore.
Yeah.
Yes.
I guess my question is, are there any workshops in New Orleans that have gone from being in 2 different workshops to being in no workshop, and I seem to need that pressure of a workshop. So I was just wondering if there are any workshops in town.
You know something?
Yeah, the New Orleans Writers Workshop has routinely sort of fiction workshops for like 6-8 weeks. I know Alan has taken a lot of those, and he can tell you they're good.
Yeah, the instructors they have are terrific, and there'll be 1 session, 2 sessions, 8 sessions, you know, poetry, creative nonfiction, fiction. It's a nice sort of array of workshops, but my experience has been that they routinely are terrific.
And Alan's a great example. You've published a lot of stories in the past couple of years.
I mean, it's to get back to the publishing thing. I mean, I started submitting my stories 2 years ago, and I went to Poets and Writers magazine. They have a searchable database of literary journals. I started going through alphabetically. I did 1 a day, then 2 a day. I've submitted like 1,000 times at this point, and I've had at this with 26 stories accepted.
There you go.
But what's funny about it, some of the journals are, you know, businesses with lots of staff and you know, like a real publishing house. Some are affiliated with universities, MFA programs. Some of them are 2 knuckleheads in the basement who want to do a literary magazine. And it's kind of hard to know because on the internet nobody knows you're a dog, you know. But it's you know, and I've had a lot of fun with it. You know, it's been kind of low stakes in a way, and I just submit, and it's great. Allison, my writing teacher, Allison Alsop, who comes out of New Orleans Writers Workshop, has told me to stop this scattershot approach and to be more selective about who I submit to, and I'm sort of at that point. It's a little daunting, actually, to making that transition to...
I did the same thing, Alan. When I first got started, like, to get my confidence on, I just want to get as many check marks as possible. And I'm like, all right, like, we're like the quote-unquote good magazines. I sort of changed my technique, but I think it's a good way to do it. Yeah. To Mary's question also, well, yeah, another thing.
Oh, I was just gonna say that also, One Book One New Orleans has workshops. Words and Music will have workshops. Liminal, which is another organization in the city, they'll do isolated workshops. So there's you know, events.
How do you find out about them?
I would say, I don't want to say I get all my news from Instagram. I don't. But I wanted to say that out loud. I don't. I would say social media. So I don't know.
Some of them have newsletters.
Some of them have newsletters, but I feel like if you follow One Book One New Orleans, you'll see some of those. One Book One New Orleans.
Oh, okay.
You'll find us.
You'll see some of those isolated things, and the New Orleans Writers Workshop, which has routine sort of.
Yeah, and also, I mean, if you're interested, don't be afraid of trying some of the online workshops.
Yeah.
Like, for example, Catapult had a wonderful series that went on for years where you sign up, you pay X amount of dollars, and maybe it's a month-long or 3-month-long thing. And I heard so many good responses. Unfortunately, they're gone now. But there's other ones, like I think Gotham Workshop is online, and there's like a few other ones like that. You can find them. Yeah. But again, like being part of the community, people will like recommend things to you. Like they'll say, oh, you should try this one. Like Alan would say, this is a good one to try. And as you get into that process, you'll figure out like where to go, you know?
And Dramatist Guild.
What I would add to that, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mimi.
I was just gonna say, the Dramatist Guild has some things that are online as well as Facebook. You can always find people that are offering or hoping to have groups, so.
Yeah, sometimes it's just taking a shot, because actually my actual origin story is so stupid. So I was a lawyer, it's 2008, I'm wandering around Loyola for no apparent reason. Like I'm just, after work, I need to just like get the energy out. So I go to Loyola, and there's like a little student newspaper, and I just pull it out, and it says, some random guy's having a workshop like at his, like somewhere on campus, like the next Monday. And I'm like, well, who is this guy? What is this thing? And it says, in big letters, not affiliated with Loyola. I'm like, well, what does that mean? And we're like trying to save money. It's like, it's also $500. And it's like during the recession started, I'm like, just take a chance. Took the chance. He's like my first mentor, James Nolan, wonderful local writer. I mean, he saved my life. He's the first guy that's like, Maurice, you're good with dialogue and metaphors. You're not so good with plot, but you're gonna get it, kid. You're gonna get it one day. And like having that person in my life changed everything. And so again, writing is a lot of trial and error, and a lot of faith, and a lot of moving forward, kind of in the darkness, and you will find light in the most awkward and unlikely places over and over and over again. That's the entire story of, I think, a lot of our writing lives. Yeah.
I mean, the one thing I would add is going to open mics and reading.
That too. Yeah.
And that's when I first got serious about my writing, and the dear departed Dogfish.
That's how we met each other.
That's how we met, and it's, it was a lovely community and a lovely environment, but there are lots of them around town. There'll be a reading followed by an open mic. And
there's so many things going on now. There's Liminal,
right,
for example. There's a Third Land and Lit, for example. There's just so many. This city is popping right now.
It is.
Because look, when I was trying to find things like in that recession era, like 2008-9, there was almost nothing. I couldn't find anything. Now there's always something happening somewhere. You got to just talk to people, ask questions. I mean, you probably know way more than I do about what's happening right now.
Well, and litwire.org.
Litwire. Litwire is helpful for that. Yes.
Litwire actually creates a calendar of all the literary events going on in the city every month. And I think last month they posted, hey, we got 57 this month. Wow. So follow Litwire and you'll almost always be, connected to a literary event, probably weekly, if not daily.
Listen, pound for pound, I'm just gonna say this. I know I got some New York people in the room, but pound for pound, this city got as much going on as New York City. We're way smaller than New York, but there's something almost every single night of the week in this city. Somewhere you can find it. If you can't find it, make your own event. People show up.
Yep.
It happens all the time.
Yeah, you're right. And on that happy note, we're gonna take one more question from Charisma and then move it to small group conversations while we finish wine and sandwiches.
Closing.
Charisma, closing question.
It's not really a question, it's more lighthearted. So, what are some things y'all are currently obsessed with that you might want to write about, or what's something that you're really happy you wrote about in the past that you're obsessed with?
I thought you got some good ones.
Oh wow. Well, I'm on like this ongoing journey of I'm in love with Atlantic Center for the Arts. They have artist residencies and now they're free. So I've done like a playwriting one, comics, and every time I go there, I keep up the same story. It's I'm obsessed with James Dean. I went to Marfa. I stayed in his hotel room. When I saw the movie Nope, it made so many similarities to me with Giant, the movie. So now I want to draw that or write about that. Yeah. What else? I guess that's I've been reading the scripts for Succession. I don't know. Just stuff like that.
How about you, Annell?
Okay, well, I'm obsessed with memes. And I'm sorry if this is gonna be an earworm for y'all, but y'all heard the meme that goes surprise, 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 surprise. I'm obsessed with that song.
Is it because you're students, they get you on the memes?
Yes, so now it's I was walking past a classroom and the teacher was giving a pop quiz and the kids several kids just went, surprise, surprise. And I just died laughing in the hallway. Other than that, I'm obsessed with group therapy and the dynamics of group therapy, and I'm writing a novel where that's this draft anyway, I might scrap this idea, deals with that.
I think part of being a writer, part of being an artist is being obsessed with things. We can just burrow down into things in a way that most people cannot burrow. I'm learning about Ovid, the ancient poet. Ovid was probably not much from the Bureau, but he knew everything about everything. All the ancient Greek poems, all the ancient Roman poems, he was just cram it into that place. So I try and lean into that vibe, the weirdness of Secession screenplay, or the weirdness of some meme or something like that. And I was telling Charisma about this, I get a lot of earworms constantly, right? And so I just lean into it. So that utopian story I'm writing, most of my stories in books are based on songs I've heard, or there's some connection to a song. So the current song I got obsessed with right now, it's a hip hop song based on an anime that uses a WWE wrestling sample with the bell ringing in the background. So I'm just gonna play 10 seconds of it. See how it goes. for the drop. There's a drop right here. There's a drop coming. Wait a minute.
Just one time, this, all the money in your flesh in the bank. Shout out to the go give me a ring. You got money, you do that big.
That groove, right? So I turned this, I started writing like this non-binary character in the year like 2138. Yeah. And again, I think as a writer, I can lean into the weirdness. Like that makes no sense to you probably, but to some part of my squirrel brain, it's like yes, use that, lean into it, get the voice, get the problem, escalate it, play a song, bam. Sorry.
One of the most fun things about reading Maurice is finding all the music Easter eggs.
There's so many. It's like 5 per page in this book. I don't know.
What was the name of that song?
Oh yeah. I'm sorry. It's
It's a good song.
It's a good song. It's called Kingdom Hearts Key by JPEG Mafia that Charisma introduced me to a long time ago. Thank you for the reference, twin. Appreciate that. That song is so catchy.
Also by Lil Uzi Vert.
And if you listen to it real close, he's clicking a pen in the background throughout the entire song. It's so annoying, but it's so addictive.
Because you don't teach high school.
I know.
So Mimi, current obsessions?
Spanish. I'm trying to learn Spanish. I'm just like a deer in the headlights when someone speaks it back to me. I always start off good. I had someone ask me to write a play, and so I have a bilingual play, and I keep on trying to make it, more Spanish in it, and then I want to go to Spain, and then that other thing happened that made me say, oh, I can't go to Spain now, and I'm obsessed with this story about the first Wonder Woman, who was really from of Spanish descent, and this is way in maybe the 18th century when this story came out, and I have this book and I wanted to learn how to read it.
I was a Spanish teacher.
Spanish teacher.
She's a Spanish teacher.
Okay.
Yeah. Gina, what are you obsessed with, if anything, or what have you been obsessed with in the past?
Well, I'm always obsessed with something right now, and the first thing that popped into my head, I'm trying these high intensity workouts.
Ooh. Was it HIIT?
HIIT.
Yeah.
And so I'm now obsessed with the heart. I've been thinking about the heart and kind of how it works, what it does, kind of the different aspects of the heart, the emotional heart, the physical heart. So I've been thinking about the heart a lot. And I've been obsessed with this. I have been wanting to put a cookbook together.
What?
But it's a cookbook that would be based on kind of a food war, where it's nonfiction, memories about, I'm Italian, so food was everything in our house. So kind of writing memoir, having a recipe, which we lost in Hurricane Katrina, and then I want to have a photograph of the dish. And so I've been wanting to do this cookbook for a long time. But in the immediate, right now, the latest thing is the heart. And yeah.
Great question, Rizzy. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. And just to close this out, I'll tell you about, the obsession you all know I have, which is getting books across the community. So I'd love for y'all to mark your calendars for the next couple things we've got coming up, because, we're not done yet. It's only November 29th. We've got a whole other month to go. December 9th, we're gonna be outside Domino Sound Record Shack from 3 to 5 p.m., which is during DJ Soul Sisters' annual holiday crate dig. We'll be doing a book drive. We're collecting new books for children birth to 18. What we'll then do is we will package those books according to age and maybe interests, if we know what the interests are. We'll give those books to an organization serving incarcerated mothers. The mothers will then give those books to their children during their holiday visits. So that's what we'll be doing on December 9th, is collecting those books for those moms to give to their kids. We're asking for only new books because my babies are going to open up new books on Christmas, and their babies should too. And then on December 16th, as you all know, we give books to adult ed programs throughout the year. And adults in the city are using Maurice's book and the curriculum that we developed to learn to read. They have written pieces about the epigraph, which is, you want to tell them the epigraph of your book?
Oh, for this one?
Yes.
What is it? Oh, this is actually, yeah, based on,
Which story was it out of that book that won the?
it was the title story. So there's a story with this same title inside the book. The epigraph to this book is from Ellis Marcellus. If you don't know, he's the wonderful, legendary piano player, the patriarch of a family of, really special musicians.
And he was here.
And yeah, he was here, absolutely. All right, the epigraph is this. He said, in New Orleans, culture doesn't come from on high. It bubbles up from the street.
Yes, so we have collected all of the writings that adult ed students have done in response to that epigraph into a collection called Up From the Street. We're launching that book December 16th at Main Library at 2 o'clock, and everyone should come out. Maurice, I got a sneak preview today. It's beautiful. So everyone come out. Everyone who comes will get a free copy of that book. We'll be in community together to celebrate what Maurice's book has inspired these students to write.
Yeah.
See, she tried to get you the clap. She knew I was going to say next. That Megan is actually an angel, and the work she's done in this community has been incredible. We've got to go to the prison this year together. About 2 months ago, we went to this women's shelter. Had a wonderful experience there. It's just, the work you do. Thank you for all of it. Thank you. All right. So, look, you ain't gonna buy my books at all. Buy all their books and go see the plays, whatever. Just buy everybody's stuff and find us online.
Right on.
Yeah. All right.
All right, let's go get some sandwiches.